Hello and welcome to yesterday's Airlines. It is the 10th of August where I am, and NG Models have just announced their August releases in the last couple of days, and these have caused something of a stir for a number of reasons. Partly because there are, by my count, 43 of them, which is a large number and gets certain people very upset, and also because of the nature of some of the releases. And I think just that NG models themselves are a real talking point in the scale and get people talking for better or worse, really. So we've got 43 models to look through in this video, and I'm going to try and keep it short. So I'll get to that in a second, but before I do, I want to discuss some of the talking points that have discussed or gone around this set. For starters, lots of people I've seen complaining about the number of models. Now, some of these people are incredibly disingenuous owners of inferior brands and such, who complain about flooding the market with models and so on and so forth. I want to remind people, however, that there are 8 billion people on this planet, and NG Models has over 70 retailers as well. So even if they're producing a decent number of a lot of these, the reality is there's plenty of people. And NG have stimulated quite a lot of demand, it seems, in the scale. So I don't think you can compare what they're doing to lesser brands with very small production numbers and very small retailer networks. And let's face it, retailers can buy as much or as little of the models as they want. Nobody's making them buy them. So that's one of the good things about NG, and that's not the case with all manufacturers or brands, that you can pick and choose what you want. So if you're in Japan, say, I assume you're going to be picking up the Zip Air and the Nippon more than you'll be picking up some of the European releases like Aegean. And if you're in the States, you're going to be more interested in Southwest than you will in Lufthansa, say. So there is definitely the option for different retailers to pick up different models. But in the end of the day, or at the end of the day, what difference does it make to us as collectors? It makes zero difference. I don't really understand the argument that they're flooding the market or it is any way bad for us. And I've yet to see a cogent argument suggesting it is. Whether it's good or bad for retailers really depends on how much they can stock they can afford to carry and whether the models sell. But as I say, they can order whatever they like. So I don't really understand that argument either. And that's really the end of it in terms of the number of releases. I just don't understand people complaining about it, really. I like to have more models. I'd like to have more individual models than there are in this set. And that brings us on to the second bunch of complaints I see, which is the content of the releases. Nobody's ever going to get what they want every month. And there's a lot of models here that I'm not even vaguely interested in. Hey, suck it up. Okay, now I've been pretty critical of NG and stuff they've released in recent times, and I'm not overly thrilled by the set either. But at the same time, that's the same for any of the brands, any of the manufacturers. The double standard that I see associated with NG just seems kind of crazy, really. I don't see people complaining this much about other brands or seeing it as some kind of conspiracy against them that they're not getting exactly the models they want. It is annoying at times, I freely admit. I'm not overly enamored with a lot of the models here myself, but yeah, really. And let's face it, if they release less models, then you're going to be getting less models you want, okay? So that argument also doesn't carry much water. And the third argument I see a lot is, hey, there's a lot of repeats, there's a lot of re-releases in this set, and that's true. But the same people who are complaining that NG are releasing 2 million models can't then get upset about the repeats and the re-releases, because effectively they're not new models, are they? So, again, I've seen people arguing all three of these points, which go against each other. Are they making too many models, or are they not making enough models? Or are they just not making the models that you might want? I don't really know. So I feel and hear the frustration of a lot of collectors, and I share a lot of that. But at the same time, a lot of it is nonsense, and nobody holds any of the other brands to this kind of level, really, which I guess illustrates the success NG have had. And as for those other companies that like to carry on and complain, that go around calling me an NG apologist and so on and so forth, stuff them, really. Their products are inferior. Nobody should be listening to those people. So, what we're going to do is get into these releases. I'll try and go through them at some pace to keep the video at a reasonable length. It should be good. Let's see what I can do. Before I do that, obviously subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check me out at Yes to Airlines on Instagram and Facebook. But let's get in and see what NG have got for us this month. There's good, there's bad, there's middling, as always. Okay, so starting with the Airbuses, as always, we've got a trio of People's Liberation Army Air Force A319s, B4090, B4091, B4092. They're all effectively the same, so we can treat them almost like one model. I'm not really sure why they've produced all three versions of them, but maybe Chinese collectors like to fleet build. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. But if we're looking at the models and this type of aircraft in 400 scale, then it is far from unique. It has been made already twice before, once by jcwings, and even though the engines are oversized on their 319, it's okay. It's also been made by Panda Models. So this isn't going to appeal to many Western collectors. I don't really understand why they're producing three. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to chuck one of these into workhorse. I'm going to put the other two down into scrap metal. It just seems kind of pointless to release three at once, or even three ever, in fact, to be honest, or something that doesn't seem overly sought after. Next up, we've got a couple of models which are far more sought after by at least Americans, who seem often to think that they're the only market that exists in the world for model aeroplanes. Spoiled by Gemini, I guess. Anyway, we've got a couple of Spirits. The first one up is an A319 N535NK. It's wearing the current kind of taxi style livery. It has been made before by Gemini and by Aero Classics under the guise of Velocity Models back when. This will be a better version. Hasn't been one for quite a while. Even the Gemini ones are a very old mold, so this one's definitely going to be quite a lot superior. This one's going to get up there into high flyer, because I think this is a model which is going to be quite well sought after by people, but at the same time it has been made before. And I can say pretty much the same for the next Spirit, which is an A320. This is an A320 Neo, N901, November Kilo. It's wearing the same livery. There has been a Spirit Neo before by Gemini. Their mold's obviously pretty awful. Giant engines, so on and so forth. Said it a million times before. I'm going to put this one up also into high flyer. Should be quite highly sought after. And there is plenty in this set to keep Americans happy. So, I mean, there is every month. We get so many American releases. Something that hasn't got as many releases are European short haul or medium haul aircraft. And I think plain old will be a happy man, because this month there are quite a few that hopefully will fit his criteria. And we start with a pair of Aegean A320s. The first one is a CEO SXDNB. There's also a Neo SXNEC. And they haven't been any Aegeans in the current scheme made, aside from an A321, also made by NG. So this is a completely unique livery aircraft combination on the pair of these, not made by anyone else. And for those reasons, they're going to get up there into supersonic, the pair of these. Also in this month's release set are another pair of A320 Neos. This pair are Lufthansa, which isn't too surprising, I guess. Lufthansa is very well frequented. But when I look through the list of A320 Neos in the current colours in 400 scale, of which there are several, they're mainly pretty poor. Mainly they're Gemini with the giant engines, or they're Phoenix with the questionable mould. There's not a lot going on, which is better. There's a jcwings versions as well, same mould as the Gemini. So there are several of them. None of them are very good. These are going to be the first decent ones, I would say. And the two that we've got here are DAIJE in the standard colours and DAINY in the Lufthansa colours. These will both be really nice. Should sell super well, I thought. And again, both up there into supersonic. Next, we're back off to the USA, and we've got a couple of JetBlue A321s. The first one is a CEO N942JB. It's got the prism tail, it's got the 200th aircraft stickers. I think it's the same model that was being sold at Airlines International as a kind of exclusive, but obviously wasn't that exclusive. They've made a couple of prism coloured A321s before, so this one is only different in the fact it's got that small sticker on it at the rear of the fuselage. can't do any harm to have it more available for people, but not overly exciting. This one for me is just going to be getting into the workhorse category, really. Yeah, it could maybe be high fly of some, but for me, I think it's just a workhorse model. Next up is N982JB. This is in the new jet blue colours, which are interesting. Not sure how I feel about them, to be honest. Probably don't like them as much as the old ones, frankly. But still, this is going to be super sought after. The only release of this so far has been by Aero Classics. Obviously, this is mediocre, really. It's got the wrong wing on it, so on and so forth. Usual story. But this one is obviously a better mould. It's got modern features like aerials. It's got proper rolling gears with tyre hubs. It's got the right wing for an A321, and the finish and printing will be better. So this one definitely, again, I think should be up there in supersonic. If you went out and bought the earlier version, then you should probably sell it and get this one. That's my feeling. Anyway, next up, there's an Airbus House Colours F Whiskey Whiskey Alpha Bravo. There's been doing a few House Colours Neos recently. This is the same reg as one of those, but it's in a different scheme. It's in the kind of scheme which doesn't really have anything on it other than the aircraft titles and Neo on the tail. I don't know how many House Colour A321s you can really have in your scheme, in your collection, but I guess some people might collect these. It hasn't been done before by anyone else. For those reasons, I think it probably just about merits getting into high flyer territory, but it's not thrilling me, but it is unique and no one else has made it. And that is the last of the A320 family aircraft, but there is also a single A330 this month, and that is in the colours of Sichuan Airlines. It's a Series 300 B32D2 is the reg, and it is, I think, the first passenger to freighter conversion for Sichuan. It has never been made before, looking at the list of Sichuan A330s, and that makes it, elevates it for me. I also collect Sichuan Airlines, though I'm really out of space to add more. So for this one, I think that it thoroughly is deserving of a high flyer as well. So that's it for the Airbuses this month. Decent start, I think. Some really what should be sought after models in the Aegeans and the Lufthansas and the JetBlue, and probably the Spirits as well, frankly. And the only real disappointments here are probably those Chinese People's Liberation Army Air Force A319. So not a bad start, really, on the Airbuses. Into the Boeings, and there are quite a few. There's quite a few of everything this month. We'll start with a pair of 737-600s. They're both in the colours of Austrian Airlines. The regs are OELNL and OELNM. There have been a couple of Austrian Series 600s made before by Panda. The mould's okay, not as good as the NG version. One of them was the same reg, LNL. Not much more to say about these. I've seen people moaning about having two of them, but what difference does it really make? Maybe someone wants two, I don't know. But if you're just going to split your production and put a different reg on half of the batch, then it doesn't really make any difference to anyone, I'd have thought. So, bit of a weird complaint. Not for me. I'm not going to buy buying them, but should be a nice model. I'm going to put one in the high flyer, put the other one into workhorse. Next up, we've got three South Korean 737-800s from T-Way Air. I think I've talked about T-Way Air a few times recently. Livery doesn't do much for me. There have been previous 738s for this airline, mostly by Phoenix with some pool and cockpit window printing. So the competition isn't exactly really strong in this space for them. Two of these wear effectively the same special scheme for MasterCard. That doesn't do anything for me, really. But the standard colours without that extra sticker does a little bit more. So I think that one of these, probably the standard one, should go up into maybe high flyer, I'd say, and the other two can just go in the workhorse. They don't do much for me. But then again, I'm not a Korean collector, and maybe there are people out there really keen on these. Not sure. Next up, there are a couple of Chinese 737-800s. One of these is really cool, one of them less so. We'll start with the less so. It's a Hainan Airlines B5713. It's got similar winglets. It has been made before. I think I even own the original release of this. Don't really see the need for another one particularly, though. Nothing to stop airline manufacturers re-releasing. Everyone does it. Gemini does it constantly, after all, and so does jcwings. Even Aero Classics do it. So really, is it a problem? Don't know, but it's not interesting, so I'm going to put that one to workhorse. The second one, however, Shanghai Airlines, that one is a lot more interesting to me. B5722. There have been 4 previous releases of Shanghai 738s in the scale, but they've all been pretty poor. I've got 2 of them. I've got one of the 2 Aviation 400 ones, and I've got one of the 2 Phoenix ones. The Phoenix ones have dreadful cockpit printing, the mold's rubbish. The printing is much better on the wittywings ones, but the mold isn't very good either. So really happy to get a replacement in, and this one for me is going up into supersonic because it's one of those models sitting in the collection where I go, oh, it's not that good, is it? I'd really like a better version. Now hopefully I can get one. Next up, we're off to Canada for a couple of Flair 737s. C Foxtrot Lima Charlie and Lima Juliet. They've both got different names, the aircraft, but other than that, I think that they're the same as previous Flair release. I don't really like the scheme that much for Flair anyway, but again, I could believe that there are people out there fleet building for this airline. I don't really know. So I think that this are the only Flair 737-800s that have been made in 400 scale. So in that respect, it's not like there are loads floating around the seconds market, but they don't do much for me. I'm going to workhorse the pair of these. Now we've got this month's Southwest Airlines. It seems to be Southwest every month. I guess they sell well. There's a lot of demand for them, and they do produce some nice liveries. The first one up is the current colours on a MAX 8 N8859Q. This one is surely going to do well. I think there has been a release previously. In fact, there has. There's been a release by Gemini. There's been a release, 2 releases by Aero Classics doing exactly what people are moaning about NG doing here, rebadging stock. In fact, there have been 3 releases by Aero Classics and 2 releases by and 2 releases by Gemini. In fact, I keep looking down the list and seeing more of these bloody things. Actually, there have been loads of releases by both Gemini and Southwest. So everyone moaning about rebadging and re-releasing the same aircraft livery combination, really, everyone has done it before. Why is it suddenly a problem for NG? I'm counting the list here and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Aero Classics versions, and I can see 3 Geminis. So surely one NG isn't going to sink that boat. I would still think this will sell well, and I'm going to put this one up into High Flyer. The next model, however, is really quite weird. It's a fantasy pink version of the current Southwest scheme. Yeah, what can you say about this one? The reg is, I assume, fancy as well, N8888Q. Apparently this was suggested as some kind of, I'm not sure if it's a joke, but it was a suggestion from somebody on Instagram or somewhere, and NG basically went with it and ran with it and produced it. And yeah, from where I'm sitting, this illustrates the annoyance of listening to everyone rather than just people who really should be listened to, because this is a pointless release. Not a big fan of fantasy models. This one, however, is perhaps the worst fantasy model I've seen. Yeah, it's pretty poor. And I can understand people's annoyance when NG produce this kind of rubbish, but at the same time, it won't produce an Eastern TriStar or such. But it is their choice. It is their company. And it did sound like there were people who incredibly wanted to buy this model. So I guess that if these things keep on selling, NG may keep on making them. But from where I'm standing, it's a waste of a release. But I'm not going to lose my, cool over it. It doesn't upset me to the point where I'm going ape online. But yeah, I'm still going to scrap metal it. It's probably the first time I've ever given an NG model a scrap metal rating. Obviously the mold's great, but the whole point of this is pointless, and I am annoyed that there are not enough classics. I do share a lot of frustration other collectors have. I'm not here just to say NG are great, and anyone who thinks I am is wrong. This is a scrap metal release. But the next two are definite improvements if you're interested in Asian airlines anyway. There are both MAX 9s. One is for Lion Air, one is for Thai Lion Air. The Lion Air example, PKLRI. Nobody's made it as far as I can see. I was surprised. I thought someone had, but I can't see any versions of it already existing. And I like it. It's going to fit my criteria. I really probably will pick this model up. I do collect some Indonesians, so that one is looking great, and I'm going to put that one up into supersonic, and I'm going to join it in supersonic with the Thai Lion Air version. I don't collect Thai aircraft, so this one is not going to join my collection, but at the same time, I think it looks good. And that one actually looks like it has been made before, though. That one's been made by Phoenix and Aeroclassics. Doesn't really matter. They're both massively inferior to this version. So I'm going to put that one up into supersonic as well. Those are both good selections, I think, for NG, for Asian collectors. And that's all the 737s this month, and there's a small number of other Boeings of varying levels of interest to discuss. First up is the only 757 this month, and that is annoying as well, I agree. Not enough 757s being made. This one is another Iceland Air. They really seem to like Iceland Air. TF-LL is the reg. It's wearing an Iceland Air version of the National Geographic scheme that's been made already with the Iceland Air logo on the tail and Iceland Air titles. It actually looks okay, but it's not really, really exciting. It's certainly not something I would be buying, but if I was an Iceland Air collector, I'd be all over it, and it is unique. So for those reasons, I'll put this one up into high flyer. Next, there's an Air China 747SP. It's the only worthwhile 747SP this month. B2454 is the reg. The only Air China SPs that have been made before are, well, one by jcwings and one made for skywings by jcwings, which both are effectively the same model, just repackaged. This is going to obviously be much better. It's one that I've been waiting for. I will try and replace my old version, and yeah, it's nice to see a little bit of classics turning up occasionally, though nowhere near enough, I agree. This one's obviously supersonic for me. Then we've got 4 Dreamliners, finishing off the standard Boeing releases. 2 of them are Zip Air. Not an airliner I'm really interested in, as I think I mentioned before when I talked about it. These ones are wearing the new Zip Air scheme, the one which doesn't have the Z on the tail, which nowadays reminds people of the Ukrainian war. And I don't love the scheme, but nobody aside from Phoenix has made this livery, and their one looks rubbish, mainly because, well, their model's not as good, but also because they put the cockpit windows in the wrong place, too low. So this one is going to be much better, the standard colours one. So I'm, for that model, I'm willing to put that up into high flyer, even though I don't like the scheme. I think it should be reasonably sought after. The other one is just the same scheme with a little bit of extra text on it. I'm not entirely sure what it relates to. It says "Love for Tomorrow" on it. Very Japanese. Yeah, that one's just workhorsing it for me. Nothing special. And similarly, into workhorse is the next Japanese 787-9. This one's all Nippon, JA894A. Everyone's announced it. Aviation 400 have announced it. jcwings have announced it. Can't believe Phoenix haven't released it as well. Oh, they have. They've announced it too. So everyone's announced it. Do we need another one? Do we need more Pokemon? No, we don't. Waste of time. This one can just go into workhorse for me, which leaves one last 787. Another one which pretty much everyone has announced, except for Phoenix. Aviation 400, jcwings have both announced it, but this one's going to get out first for NG, I would have thought. It's wearing Riyadh Air. The reg is N8572C, so it's the same as the other releases. This actually looks like a nice scheme, but don't really like the concept of the airline much, or Saudi Arabia. But it is a nice scheme, and this will be the first one to market, I feel. So for those reasons, I'll put this one in the high flyer, despite my reservations about the country. Okay, that's all the Airbuses and Boeings in the standard release set. There are 4 more models to discuss that are not Airbuses or Boeings. 3 of them are TriStars. There's not a lot to say about these. They're all re-releases. They're all very disappointing because of that reason. One of them is an all Nippon, again in that same livery from the 90s. The others are Pan Am Series 500s. They effectively look the same as the previous releases, just with different regs and names. Maybe there's really demand for these extra Pan Am ones, I could believe. But none of them are interesting. They are all disappointing. They should be more interesting tri-styles coming out. I can see why people are getting annoyed. So I'm going to put those in the workhorse. And finishing up the 36 or so standard releases is a China Airlines C919. It's just another version of the same model they've made before with different reg. This one's B919C. There's nothing more to say about it really than that, so they can go to workhorse 2. But that isn't it this month, because MG are doing something slightly different. They've also got, I think it's 6 models, which are... This is kind of an interesting concept. Basically, if you are someone who's a member of the NG Models site and have bought NG before, then you can order these. You have to put in 1 point, apparently, and then you say which retailer, and then you'll buy them from the retailer at ordinary price. That's the way it works, as I understand it. So that's a bit weird. They're not free models in any way. They cost 1 point plus the retail price. But you can only get them that way, at least in theory. We'll see how that pans out. They are mainly hybrids, and some of these have caused annoyance, and I can understand why that is. But they're not all bad. So again, you've got to take the rough with the smooth. And we'll start with an Alaska Airlines 737-900 N493AS. It's in the More to Love colours, which have been released already, but this one's got different engines on it. It's got the, I think, the Alaska Virgin engines or something like that. I can't remember what it says. Yeah, Alaska Virgin America. So it is different, and I can imagine that there actually would be quite strong demand for this, given the models that people collect. So, yeah, I actually think this one is probably, you know, pretty decent and deserving of being put in to, yeah, high flyer, actually. I think there'll be demand for this one, even though it is very similar to the previous release. It is different, and if I collected Alaska, I would be buying this model. So that one, actually, good stuff, I would say. Next up is the model which is probably the most divisive this month, because when they hinted at it, they hinted at an LX747SP, and everyone thought, wow, Luxair, and that would be really cool. And then they turn up and it's just a Corsair with a Luxembourg reg. Yeah, I can understand why people are annoyed. It is annoying. And I don't think NG Models grasp that, which is a shame. It should be Luxair, and nobody surely wants this one. I just don't understand why they have made it. To the extent that I'm going to put this one in gas guzzler, I'm sure it'll be nice, but it is so disappointing and annoying, and I can understand why people are frustrated and annoyed about it. So I am a bit too. I would much prefer it to be Luxair. So going to gas guzzler that unnecessary Corsair. Next up, there are a couple of Garuda A330s. They've made several Garuda A330-300s already in the standard colours. I think probably one other two. These two are both wearing different versions of the standard colours. One's wearing the face mask scheme, which has only been made, I think, on a Series 300 before by Phoenix. This one should be really nice, and it's quite tempting to get myself, but it's probably just a Model 2 fire. I don't think I will get it, but I'm still quite keen on that one. I'm going to put that one in the high flyer. The other one is just got a wonderful Indonesia sticker on it. It's pretty much the same as the standard colours one. Otherwise, yeah, that's nowhere near as interesting. I'm just going to put that one into workhorse. And that leaves a couple more models to round out this batch of 1 point exclusives. I'm not really sure how to describe them. They're both Chinese, so they might have limited interest to you guys, but they have quite strong interest to me. First up is a Sichuan T154 B2625. I think it's the same scheme as previously, but this one's got a dark nose cone, which changes the look of it quite a lot. Liking this one I definitely will try and pick up. Going to put that one in a high flyer. And the last up, we've got what they call orange, China Eastern Airlines 737-800 orange, but I'm pretty sure what they're trying to get at here is that this is going to be wearing the orange peacock scheme from the Yan'an branch of China Eastern, which is actually a super nice livery. I actually think there may be two versions of this model as well, SR001 and SR002, but only one's an exclusive, and I forgot to put the other one on the list. Doesn't really matter. They're both effectively going to be the same, I feel. I'm going to put this on in high flyer as well. I've already got older version of this. I've got the Phoenix version. This one will be nice if it is that scheme, so I'm quite looking forward to that one. I will put this one into high flyer. 2. And there we go. We got there in the end. That is all of the 43 releases from NG this month. Yeah, the only good reason I can think for NG to stop releasing so many models is so I don't have to do such long videos and try and rush through the content. Otherwise, bring them on, NG. I like to see the models. There are some models in here which annoy people, but take those models out and you've still got a large number of really good models that nobody else has made before or has never made a good version of. So even though I can understand some of the complaining, and I echo a lot of it, in reality, NG is still producing twice as many strong models a month as pretty much anyone else. It's not a high flyer. So, yeah, I mean, you can't please everyone, but you can certainly seemingly make everyone discuss your models. And I guess that's a good thing, except when some of the discussion is coming from jealous competitors who just spread lies and talk nonsense. Anyway, that's the video for this month. I should say that I didn't do a jcwings release video, just haven't had the time, but their announcements weren't very exciting anyway, so not a lot to really get thrilled about in that set. But yeah, what do I think of this month? Overall, I'd say it's half good and it's half bad. But you could say that every month about pretty much every manufacturer, so I don't think there's anything to really get too upset about. Anyway, that's it from me. Thanks very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time from yesterday's Airlines. Goodbye.